This is Brendan James, and you're at Popularity.
It's not long before the album will be released. Does waiting for the release get frustrating at all?
Well, I will say that I really want to release this record, and I'm trying to be as patient as possible. I wouldn't say it gets frustrating. I just think I get antsy.
Can you pick a couple of highlights on the album and tell us what they mean to you?
I had a lot of fun making The Lucky Ones. It's a new song on the album, and it was a little bit of a departure for me from, the kind of music that I normally write. But I had so much fun kind of branching out and trying a little bit of a new style, and I've ended up loving the result. We mixed a little bit of classic production with a little bit of more modern, almost MGMT type production, and I was so pleased with the outcome. There's a song called Your Beating Heart on the record, which I really wanted to have one song that was totally stripped down, just me and the piano, and that song means a lot to me, and I'm glad that it came out like it did in a very organic and simple way.
What keeps you focused?
My love for songwriting, and yeah, I would say my love for songwriting is what keeps me focused. It's something I wake up every morning, and I usually sit down at the piano almost right away every day and start a new idea or try to flesh out an old one. I think I'll always have that till the day I die.
Do you remember the first song ever that you wrote, and what can you tell us about it?
The first song I wrote, I guess, would be a song called Break Free, and it was after someone in my hometown had encouraged me to try to write my first song, and they believed in me at that moment more than I believed in myself. I didn't know it was possible. And I went home, and that was probably the first song I wrote. I think it had 2 chords in it, and I don't think it had a lot of lyrics. I think I said break free quite a few times. And I look back now, and it's not a great song, but I guess it was a starting point.
Would you say that determination has been the key to the success you've achieved so far, or is there something else?
I think it's determination and belief in yourself and trying to overcome a lot of the inevitable obstacles in this music business with sanity. I think it has a lot to do with determination and persistence and, knowing that you're a long haul. And I think you're a better artist if you just realize it's a life pursuit.
What would you say is the biggest challenge facing you right now?
I guess the biggest challenge facing me right now is getting my name out. And so many people after concerts or after they hear my music, they say, "Oh, you're going to be so successful." And I always smile, and in my heart I know that's a lot easier said than done. And I think my biggest challenge is just getting the music that I've made and that I'm proud of to the masses, I guess. It's the kind of the age-old dilemma for musicians. How do you do it?
What do you feel you've learned about yourself musically and personally through the album creation process?
This album I learned a lot about myself, and I think even more I learned a lot about myself while touring, like a lot of musicians seem to do. But touring really let me spread my wings and realize that I wanted to sing even more and try to hit higher notes and try to write songs that were a little more challenging to play on the piano and sing. I think this album process brought out somewhat of a new artist in me. It allowed me to really push my boundaries and my abilities, and I hope people liked the result.
Can you talk a bit about some of the highs and the lows that you went through while recording?
I think some of the highs were, let's see, how can I phrase this? Some of the highs of recording came from the musicians I got to work with. And when you pull in some of the best musicians in the country or maybe even the world, they're going to inspire you, and these guys certainly did. It was a treat every time they came in the studio, and I felt like they were really giving these brand new songs such life, and I got excited on the days that the studio was packed with musicians and the producer was making all the calls, and it was just a really exciting time. I guess the lows, I didn't have many lows while making the album. I think lows came a little bit before. I had some writing block, and it took about a year, maybe 10 months to write this album, and it was a tough 10 months because I was really searching for these new songs, and it was very frustrating at times. But yeah, there weren't too many lows in the album making process. It was a pretty positive experience.
What would you say is your favorite part about making an album?
My favorite about making an album is the routine that you get into. Going into the studio, fleshing things out with your producer, who kind of becomes a partner to you in this, I don't know, this big project that you're trying to complete. And it's really nice to get into, to come off the road, to not have any pressure of gigs or interviews or whatever it is, and you're just in the studio. And it's a routine that begins. It's very creative, and you feel kind of sheltered from the outside world for those couple months. And I always look forward to making records for that reason.
What would you say is the most challenging part about the album making process?
I would say the most challenging part about making an album is finding that perfect balance between the artist and the producer or producers involved. Unless an artist self-produces himself, which does happen sometimes, which I'm sure they're going to be happy with the result because they did it. I think many times the biggest challenge of making a record is making sure the artist has made that record that is his or her sound and is something that he's so or she is so proud of. And at the same time that the producer feels like he or she made their mark. And, you know, because the producer has a lot of things on their mind, and the producer, usually more than the artist, has a little bit of a commercial viability on their mind. So that's something, it all has to come together, and I think that can be very tricky.
What exactly are you trying to open people's minds up to with this album?
I think with all my music, there's something that happens, but I try to stay positive. And I think this album is even on a new plane of positivity, and hopefully it's subtle in the songs, but it just comes out of me nonetheless. And I hope with this album that people can hear a positive message in almost every song.
Are there any songs that surprised you taking a different direction than you thought that they would during the initial creation periods?
Good question. I think there's a song called Changing Us, and it's a song that I wrote in London before this recording process began. And in London I had it produced much differently. It was more stripped down, more organic, and I think the arrangement was even shorter. And with Warren Hewart, who produced my album, we really decided to go for it on this song, and it's ended up being my favorite probably on the record because it's a production that, has some guts, and we took some risks, and it gets pretty big at the end, and it was not how I was expecting it was going to be, and I love it now.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to the readers of Popularity?
Well, I'd like to say I hope you're all having a great summer, and thanks for checking out this article, and check out my album, September 7th. I'm so excited for the release.